Welcome back, Internet, to another Reddit story. This one is malicious compliance. Basically, people following directions to the letter, even if it's them not doing things right. Alright, let's get into it. You start at 7, you finish at 7. Not sure if this truly belongs here, but here it goes. I used to work at a car company about 2 to 3 years ago as a telephonist on the night shift doing 12-hour shifts. It was pretty good, 4 days working, 3 days off, and the pay was decent. However, most people didn't take their job seriously. They would call in sick or just not show up for work at all, and especially on nights where there were only 4 of us. If one person didn't show up, you felt it. I was a star employee. I showed up early, logged in, and started working usually around 6:30. I never took a sick day. Changed my holidays to fit the company's needs, and worked any overtime they needed me to work. I was so dedicated to my role that I would work on multiple occasions 18 to 24 hours as people wouldn't show up for their shifts and they needed cover. It was my first real job, and I believed in the company. I used the train system to get to and from work, and always planned out my routes around as much as I could to avoid being late. However, on this particular day, they were running a reduced service due to breakdowns. A lot of the trains had been repaired using less than stellar parts, and the wheels kept sticking to the track when they hit the brakes, causing wearing on the wheels in specific spots. So, a lot of trains were out of commission. On top of that, the train that was on had stopped due to a signal issue for 15 to 20 minutes. This led to me being late. I had shown up about 10 minutes late to the start of my shift. Before I even sat down, my manager was giving me grief. Apparently, they were mad because I had stopped other telephonists going home as someone had to work extra 10 minutes to cover my shift, as well as 2 people were ill and couldn't make it in. Now, I hate being late. I was already pissed off that I was late, but my manager giving me trouble as soon as I walked through the door just irritated me even more. My reply to him was as follows. Apologies, I was late. However, how many times have I ever been late? I show up 30 minutes before my shift every day. I've stayed late to cover shifts before the train had an issue with it. It was out of my control. I was stuck underground with no signal to call or to text to let you know. My manager didn't give a crap. Their reply to me was, you start at 7, you finish at 7. You are early on your own time. Those times you've stayed behind, you've been paid and no one asked you to. Okay then, was my reply. The next day was extremely busy, and my colleague had left, and there's only one of the morning guys had shown up to a shift to take over. As he sat down, I began to pack up. At 7 a.m. on the dot, I left. As I usually helped out when this happened. Everyone was surprised and asked me where I was going. My only reply was, I start at 7, I finish at 7. This was my final shift for the week, so I was off for the next few days. On my first shift back, I get pulled into the office by my manager with HR. They asked me why I left a single telephonist on their own. I looked at my manager and repeated the exact same words that they were said to me. My manager informed me I start at 7, I finish at 7. The look on HR's face was priceless. She was pissed. She already had a staff issue to deal with, and on top of that, one of her most helpful staff members had been mugged off by a manager. She told me to get back to my desk, and she needed to speak with the manager in question. 20 minutes later, the manager came back in looking absolutely defeated. He never ever said anything to me again about being late. It took me personally a number of years to realize that companies will be appreciative if you do something nice for them, like working when you're sick or coming in for other people or staying late. But as soon as you mess up or as soon as you want to call in sick or something like that, like you're on your own. It's even more difficult when you're in an entry-level job like fast food or retail or something like that, because the company knows that, well, if you start to fight back or just try to stand up for yourself, they could just fire you and get someone else. No promotion, no more training. So this goes back to high school when I worked at a sandwich shop. I started at one location, and then Hope opened another one where I stayed. Since I already knew how to work there, I was asked to help train new employees. I did not have a problem with it because I was young and I thought I was being a company man. But you're supposed to get a promotion to lead, which comes with a raise, and those are the people that are actually supposed to train new people. I was passed over the lead promotion a couple of times, and every time I asked the store manager, he said I would be with the next group. Well, I heard enough excuses why they wanted me to train, yet not give me the proper pay for it. So the next round of hires comes in, and guess who they ask to help train? I tell them I'm not the lead and can't train. The assistant manager was shocked and thought I'd been the lead this whole time. He understood and didn't push it, but the next day I worked with the manager and he was upset that the new hires were not trained. I told him no one was here that was a lead. He said that I was here and I could have trained him. I said I would have if I wasn't passed for the promotion 2 other times. And why doesn't he get the leads here on the weekend and train? He knew he messed up. I wasn't going to train the new guys today either, so it was a huge waste of money to have them here without a trainer. The next go around, I was promoted to lead and now able to train new hires. It kind of goes back to the same point I was making before, where you can do something that's super nice and super dedicated for a company just because it's a nice thing to do, but they can turn around and say, well, your pay isn't in writing, so I can ask you to do something, but I mean, if you say yes, I mean, that's cool. I'm still not going to pay you. But then when you do the flip side and say, hey, it's not written anywhere where I have to train, then that's when they're like, what? Doesn't get much pettier than this. Back in the days of renting VHS tapes, there was a small video store that also sold Pick-a-Pop. I mention this only because of my love for Lime Ricky. They had a special, 3 movies for $4.99 or $2.99 each. I only wanted to rent 2 and I put them on the counter. $6 plus tax, from the gruff person behind the counter. I happily replied, shouldn't it be $4.99 plus tax? Gotta rent 3. Can't you read the sign? I quickly grabbed a 3rd video, Buddy Hackett live in Vegas, and slapped it on the counter. Getting a dirty look from the dude behind the counter and paid my $5 plus tax and dropped the 3rd video in the returns. Hey, you can't do that, Grumpy Guy said. Oh, the sign says 72-hour maximum, nothing about a minimum. Can't you read that? So, I don't have any problem with the guy saying, hey, you gotta get 3 for the sale, because who knows, it could be just like, if you ring it in the computer, it won't register the discount unless you actually ring in 3. That's fine, but to get after the guy for, like, trying to return it early? Alright, whatever, dude. Don't you dare make that until I get to the window! You got it, Chief. So, I work at a popular ice cream franchise, and my store also sells your normal fast food. I say this because I know there are some specific stores out there that just sell ice cream. I work in the ice cream section. I deal with anything with ice cream, duh. Blended drinks and baked treats on the daily. I always wear a headset so I can listen to the drive-thru orders and help make sure Drive keeps good times by staying on top of everything. This one night, we were absolutely slammed on drive-thru. Thankfully, front didn't have any orders, so my partner and I didn't need to worry as much. This one lady comes up to the speaker, orders her food, and then she orders one of her parfaits, which consists of hot fudge, peanuts, and ice cream. We were still a couple of orders behind on my station, so I didn't worry too much about hurrying to get it done. But that is when the lady gets snarky with our drive-thru person. Don't you dare make that until I get to the window, she says. Every time I come here, the parfait is completely melted. My manager pipes in with her sickeningly nice tone of voice. If you'd like, we can just replace the hot fudge with cold fudge, because the hot fudge is what makes the ice cream melt. She doesn't usually treat customers like children, but this lady needed this treatment. No, the lady responds, audibly offended and sounding as though my manager had just asked her the dumbest, most obvious question in the world. I want it normal. Now, if she requested nicely that we wait on making her parfait, I would have asked our drive-thru person to let me know as soon as the car in front of her drove off so I can make her parfait as soon as possible to give her the best non-melted parfait she had ever received. I paced myself so her fast food got to her first, slowly but surely making the parfait. After all, she didn't specifically say anything about making it fast, right? Yes, the hot fudge started melting the bottom layer of ice cream, but surely it was better than being completely melted. After the parfait was done, we got out and continued on with our lives, but I desperately wish I could have seen the look on her face while she waited more time than necessary for something that most likely still melted by the time she got home. Moral of the story? Don't be a snarklord to fast food workers, especially on a busy night. They have the ability to make everything a little more mildly inconvenient for you, and you could end up being the butt of their jokes for months to come. So this is what I really got from this story. How many times have I heard it myself where a customer says, every time I come here, something happens, but yet they still keep on coming. It's like, if the customer service was really that bad, why are you still coming? But I really also appreciate the snark lord. I will use that from now on. I've never heard of that term, snark lord. Anyway, well, thank you again, Internet, for joining me on some more Reddit stories. I've never heard of Malicious Compliance, that subreddit, before, so I'm glad I stumbled across it. It's probably going to be a new episode series I'm going to be doing. So, again, thanks for joining me. If you liked what you saw, thumbs me up, share it with a friend, and subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you guys in the next episode. So until then, later, kids.